Hey trainers, Araquinid here with some more Pokemon video magic. And in today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at the newly available Toxapex in the Open Great League. And Toxapex has been getting a lot of hype, so I definitely wanted to build one, wanted to check it out and see what it could do. And overall, I had a pretty good time with Toxapex, as you're going to see in the video. So we are just going to go ahead and hop right in, and I'll let you know how using this brand new water poison type Pokemon went. So it could be powered up, I think, one or two more times, which I'll get to eventually, but as of now, you know, I was just using what I had. So my opponent switches out of the lead in this first battle, and they bring in a Registeel, and I'm going to go ahead and bring in my Medicham, which can also be powered up a little bit more. So hopefully this video is encouraging for those of you who may not have powered up your Pokemon all the way. If they are really difficult to power up, you can still make them playable while you're working on, you know, finishing off their eventual builds, right? Okay, so expending one shield is going to be enough to let me farm down the Registeel, and I do have a little bit of energy here. I'm going to go ahead and throw the Ice Punch. This is going to be debuffed because of the Registeel, but I didn't want to give up Switch. And what do you know? My opponent has their own Toxapex. So I'm going to come in here and do the mirror match, hopefully whittling down the opposing Toxapex as much as possible. I'm just going to be going for Sludge Bombs instead of Brines because both of the attacks are stab, but Sludge Bomb hits harder. And I do get the shield from my opponent, which is nice. And debating whether or not I want to return that shield, I end up not doing it because they're just going to continue throwing Brines, I guess. You're going to see that the Sludge Bomb doesn't do all that much more, but it chunks a bit more than the Brines do. And here I was thinking I was getting a little low, but I went ahead and let it through. So yeah, even a Sludge Wave was not going to quite take me out. And right at the end there, we reach a last-minute Sludge Wave, which is going to really chunk that Toxapex. And now it's time to bring in Araquinid. So in case you couldn't tell, yeah, did not want to tank a Sludge Wave on Araquinid. But Araquinid is going to do really well against this Scrafty, so that works out well for us. All right, so in case you couldn't tell, the name of the game with this particular team is Bulk. We have very, very bulky Pokemon working together on this team. In fact, you are going to notice that all of the games I play in this set are actually pretty close. They are not far and away wins by any means, but the sheer bulk of these Pokemon is enough to give them enough time to get those extra fast moves in or reach a last-second charge move. And usually that's something that's able to clinch a game and get a win for me. So I was able to take that first match, and we are moving on to the next round, coming into a fantastic lead against an Azumarill. Azumarill is more or less just walled by Toxapex because that poison typing is going to resist any potential fairy moves, and the water typing is going to resist Ice Beam as well as Hydro Pump. So Toxapex is a hard wall here. Look at that, that was a Hydro Pump, and it didn't even get us close to the yellow zone. I anticipated that they were going to switch, so I waited until I saw the switch start to happen, and I went ahead and threw the Brine, and I thought I was going to make it to the next Brine, but I didn't, so that's not great. Had to go ahead and use a shield there, but I'm hoping to get the shield back by throwing this Brine against the Haunter. I did get the shield back, which is great, and now I'm farming up. And gonna have to shield here. trying to remember why I wasn't switching. I feel like I should have been switching here. Yeah, I should have switched out, but I didn't, so that's okay. I went ahead and used the brine there. I mean, I was going to have a difficult time with the switch too, but those poison jabs were not doing me any favors. I guess I didn't necessarily have a better response than Toxapex. It's just we really wanted Toxapex for the Azumarill up front. And now I'm in a weird position because my Medicham basically has nowhere to go. It's going to be weak against a lot of the moves coming off of both of the remaining Pokemon. But with a debuffed Sableye, that works out okay because I'm able to tank a little bit more damage, and Medicham can chunk a nice hearty amount there. Unfortunately, Araquinid is going to have to deal with foul play. Isn't too terrible there, but the Azumarill comes in and, okay, it's a play rough. So Ice Beam is actually super effective if I'm remembering correctly, which would not have been fun due to that bug typing, right? But I don't think it would have been enough to KO anyway. It just would have got us kind of close. So at this point, I'm thinking I have enough Stardust and Candy to go ahead and power up this Toxapex a bit more. Yeah, so I add a few more CP, and more or less that's just going to serve to make the team even bulkier than it already was. So there you go. These are beefy boys, and they are able to tank a lot of damage. Okay, coming into another positive lead against a Primeape. All the fighting type moves are going to be resisted by the poison typing on our little spiny water guy there. And Toxapex was still going to be vulnerable to neutral moves like Night Slash, but things like that are non-stab. So anyway, they were in a bad position. They swapped out to the Skarmory, and again, I thought that I would get to a Brine, just like last game. Clearly didn't learn my lesson. Thought that I was going to get to a Brine before I actually did. But I'm happy that they switched into the Skarmory here, and I'm not switching out because I really need to chip away at the Skarmory and try to get shields as best I can, because both of my Pokemon in the back are weak to flying. So I keep Toxapex up front to try and defend against potential flyers. Fortunately, Skarmory is part Steel type, so it takes neutral damage from counters, fighting type moves, and that allows me to go ahead and farm down with the Medicham. My opponent brings in Swampert, and they are going to be met with a Psychic. I'm going to go ahead and shield here, hoping that I can get to another move, and I'm just going to be counting on Araquinid to kind of close out the game. You're going to see that as a theme throughout this video. Araquinid works really well as a closer, just because it is so beefy. But this whole team is, as I've already mentioned, so that works out nicely. Araquinid able to farm down there, and now we bring it in against the Primeape. My opponent can do some decent neutral damage here, but even a close combat, that did a lot for a resisted move. You've got to be impressed with Primeape's attack stat, but it's still not going to be enough to deal with Araquinid. That is one big spider. So we are able to take game number 3, and we're going to jump right into the next match. Needless to say, I am fairly pleased with Toxapex and how it performs. I've had a really good time using it, and there are other teams where it works really well too, but I just wanted to do something with a lot of bulk. So this time we came across what I think was a losing lead. I don't remember the exact matchup description, but I do know that Swampert has access to ground type moves, which are going to be super effective. And now we are in basically worst case scenario for Araquinid because all of Araquinid's moves are resisted, and it's going to be taking super effective damage from those flying type moves from the Altaria. So not great. The best I can do is keep throwing these bubble beams to try and weaken it, and that way its attacks won't do as much damage to the Toxapex when I bring the Toxapex back in. The good news here is that if I can get some residual energy on Toxapex, I can hit back against that Swampert for neutral damage. And if they go for Hydro Cannons, obviously it's going to take them a lot longer to, get rid of to knock out the Toxapex. So my opponent opts to go for a Dragon Pulse there. That's pretty cool. You don't see Dragon Pulse very often on Altaria anymore, now that Moonblast has been made available. I decided I didn't really want to tank any more moves, so I went ahead and threw the Brine. And this was a difficult decision, but I called the Hydro Cannon, and it was Hydro Cannon, so that worked out fine. And I've kind of flipped my usual strategy this time. I'm counting on the Medicham to be the closer. And I'm going to go ahead and start shielding because those Hydro Cannons are going to hurt a lot, and they're really going to add up. And I don't know if I want to expend the last shield. I decide to go ahead and do it. I'm banking on the fact that they were staying in. Yeah. Okay, I was thinking whatever is in the back has to be weak to this thing, otherwise they wouldn't be focused so hard on squeezing out all of the damage they can get from that Swampert before making the swap. So I immediately get one of the shields back. Earthquake is not going to be enough to KO here. So I am going to get to another Ice Punch, and going for Ice Punch because neutral damage, right, against the ground typing. And I think that I need Medicham to win this game, yeah, so I had to very carefully count and then make a catch here. And I was counting on the fact that they would throw Rock Slide instead of Earthquake because the Medicham was low. So I just counted up to the Rock Slide, and we are barely able to take that win. I was very nervous that that catch wasn't going to work. Had they anticipated the catch, I would have definitely lost that game. That was the only chance I had left, and we just barely pulled it out. But it worked, so I was very happy with how that game went, and I do believe this is the last game in the set. We've got Game 5 here. And this is a somewhat neutral matchup. I don't think that Ariados has any moves that are neutral here, unless I'm forgetting something. No, everything's resisted. And so at least Toxapex has Brine, which can do neutral damage to the Ariados. Another great thing that I noticed here, because they went straight for Megahorn, that more or less tells me that they probably don't have Lunge. And then they confirmed it there when they threw the Cross Poison. So they come in with a Galarian Stunfisk. I'm going to go ahead and throw the Brine to either get a shield or chip some damage, so I'll take the chip. But I've got to immediately get out of there because Toxapex wants nothing to do with ground-type moves. Because my opponent had already shielded, I decided that I would use a shield there too, just to preserve a little bit of energy and health. And unfortunately they got to another move, but it was just a Rock Slide, so I didn't have to worry about shielding that. So now we have energy if they come back in with the Ariados, which they do not. So that's okay. I'll go ahead and start throwing Ice Punches. And I'm going to go for the Psychic here, hoping that maybe they don't shield. Didn't want to reveal that I had Psychic quite yet. And it works. We are able to go ahead and land that Psychic, which is really nice. And we do survive a Hydro Cannon. Can we get to... Okay. No, we forced them to throw. Can't get to the Ice Punch. I think I would have got to the Ice Punch, so that would have been pretty nice there. But yeah, now we are down to my 2 bugs versus my opponent's bugs. And I'm going to go ahead and shield up the potential Megahorn, which it was. It would have been resisted, but it also would have hit really hard. So it would have been unpleasant anyway. And I'm just throwing these bubble beams for neutral damage because my opponent's already very low, and also because if my opponent is debuffed and there's no way to reset the debuff, that's going to be really difficult on them. That Mega Horn did do a lot, but actually the Araquinid was able to pull off the game at the end. I thought I would have to go back into my Toxapex, which would have been fine, right? I think it could have closed the game pretty handily there because my opponent was in a bad position. So good game to all of the folks who I played. It was a really fun set, and as you can see, Toxapex worked out very nicely. Strongly recommend building up this new Pokemon, even though it is kind of, costly in terms of the resources. I think it is worth the time and energy that goes into the investment. I hope you are able to build your own and that you have fun with it in Go Battle League. I'll have more videos ready for you sometime soon. Until next time, trainers.